Hey, good morning, Close It family. Welcome back. It's really hard to believe that this is the last week of February, but it is. So hope everyone's doing well, survived the crazy weather, and glad to see you here today. I'm super excited again about this session because, we all know the importance of getting people back to work, understanding career mobility. And, I recently took my own career interest profile with some friends in Arizona that we're working with. And it said my two top careers were finance and hospitality. Obviously finance is my background, but hospitality has always been of strong interest to me. I think the hotel industry is both, an amazing opportunity for entry level and an amazing opportunity for career mobility. So thank you so much again, as always, Phil Jordan and Luther Jackson, for bringing together a really great group. Just as a reminder, Glozit is distributed this year, and we will be recording this and sending it out along with Hub 2's last session. We'll send both of those recordings at once this afternoon. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys, and thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, Jermaine.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for joining us today for this design session. I'm going to go over just sort of a few overarching comments and some ground rules, and then we will get into the panelist introductions and get into the conversation. But for those of you who have joined any of our previous hubs, our activity is focusing really on a new paradigm for talent development that's focused on enhancing economic mobility. So the general premise, and we've heard Luther talk about this a lot, is talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. And so we're working to design a new series of interventions and perhaps even a new system that focuses on more equitable access to that opportunity. Now, too often when we design things, the design of those programs is really led by designers themselves, right? And designers bring their own set of ideas of what works and their own expectations and biases and desires. And while it's not always the case, often those preconceived notions can be completely misaligned with what's really needed by the end users. In this case, talent and employers. So this design process really turns the traditional model on its head. You may have heard it called design thinking or human-centered design. And today, we'll be working with you, the community of users, to design the system. So we're starting with an especially important segment of the economy that has been hardest hit during COVID, which is hospitality. So in this design process, the way that it's going to work is we have a few individuals who Luther will be leading some introductions in just a moment, who are either direct representatives or experts in their field for understanding the talent perspective. And for those of you participating as sort of listening in, obviously we want you to engage as well through the chat function as we have with previous sessions. So please use the chat function liberally to ask your questions and make your comments. We do have a range of experienced people today to work with us. And as I mentioned, we are especially interested today in the perspectives of talent seeking opportunity. So don't worry, there will be a more direct role to talk with business owners and hiring managers about what they want and need for the system. But today we're really thinking about people who work or have recently worked in hospitality jobs, how they're thinking about approaches to their careers and future activities. So you may have that direct experience, such as Maria does, or you may have a close relationship with such workers, such as Polly or Armando, or you've conducted extensive research on the topic like Ron. All these people will be introducing themselves in just a moment. But I want to make sure that you all feel empowered to chime in. Those of you who are panelists, or we can see your video, or you'll be talking directly, or those of you who will be participating by chat. Just please keep your comments specific to your direct knowledge base so that we can try to keep those preconceived biases out, at least for now. We want to hear from everybody at some point, but for now, we're really talking about the direct role. So one last note, Luther and I will be guiding the discussion with some framing questions. But we want this to be very clear, there's no strict format, nor are there any wrong answers. And if a question or idea pops into your head, please respectfully interrupt and participate. So this is an active design session, not a panel presentation. Participation is, if not mandatory, strongly encouraged. So are there any questions before we get started from anyone?
We're good.
Okay, terrific. In that case, hello, Armando. Thanks for joining. I'm going to turn it over to Luther to lead the introductions and get us started.
Thanks so much, Phil. Hi, everyone. Good morning. So what I'd like each of our panelists to do is just give me your name, a brief work history, and your connection to the leisure and hospitality industry. And Maria, I'd like to start with you, please.
Yeah, okay, I'm on mute now. Okay, my name is Maria de Rueda. I work for DoubleTree by Hilton San Jose for 21 years. I started as a housekeeper there, and I was allergic to chemicals, so they were gonna let me go because I couldn't handle chemicals. But the HR director said that they couldn't let me go because they saw how I did the work, and so they put me in banquets. I worked there as a server for 1 year, and then the rest as a banquet captain for 20 years. I also have helped there in different departments. I'm sorry.
That's great. Thank you so much. Armando?
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Armando Ricardes. Previously worked at as an advisor for the SPDC running the restaurant program. I am now with Prosperity Labs, and basically, yes, I've been helping people start their own restaurants, working with the city, with the county, getting the permits. But before that, I've always been in the food service industry. I managed to be blessed with picking up some accounts in big corporations, running the cafeteria, food service, serving breakfast, caterings, and doing all that. It's been in my blood since my father, well, he was a previous restaurant worker, and I think it's just something that you really love to have. You really need to love to be in the hospitality business.
That's great. Thank you so much and welcome. Polly?
Hi, my name is Polly Watts, and my dad died in 2006, and I inherited the Avenue Pub, which I had helped him open when I was a senior in college. I'd been in a corporate background with Bell South before that, and so I guess what drew me to it was I inherited the bar, but what sort of I led the path to this is I was truly shocked at the way hospitality, bars, and restaurant employees were treated. And I've worked very hard to make sure that we provide benefits for our employees. And I guess I'm sort of a champion of that end of it.
All right.
And Polly, you're joining us from where?
New Orleans, Louisiana.
Thank you. And Ron Mitchell, please.
Good morning. My name is Ron Mitchell. I'm formerly I'm a CEO of H Careers. H Careers is the largest hospitality job board in the nation, serving candidates up and down from room attendants to general managers, hotel industry, across restaurant industry. And through that, worked very closely with the National Restaurant Association, the Hotel and Lodging Association, and built a lot of the career pathways for those organizations that help provide transparency as to what are the career steps, behaviors, experiences, skills one needs to develop in order to advance in their careers. Our customers were, 19 of the top 20 hospitality companies in the world. And also, in part of doing that for us, as we started building a number of different skill assessment tools, we spent a lot of time doing work and researching and interviewing hospitality workers to understand what their needs were, both rational and emotional needs, what their pain points are around the work, and what their sort of must-haves are in terms of work life and flexibility, in the workplace. So built a number of different types of personas for the industry that encapsulated a lot of that first person research that we performed.
Thanks so much, Ron. And you're joining us from Chicago, right?
Yes, I'm in Chicago.
Great. Okay, well, let's go to San Jose. And Maria, we'd like to start with just some basic questions for you. Really want to hear your story. So how did you find out about your jobs at the Hilton, and what attracted you to this work? So why this type of career over something else?
I came as an immigrant when I was 17 years old. So I didn't know what kind of job I was gonna get into. I started babysitting the HR team member who, after her daughter went to school, she said that they were hiring at the DoubleTree. So that's how I got hired. I didn't know that I was, after I transferred to banquets, I didn't know that I was love it so much because I love to work with people. And so in my first try, I found the job that I love to do.
That's great. That's great. And what sort of training, formal training, did you receive on the job, both in banquets particularly?
Well, first I got hired as a server, so they trained me how to serve the food. They also trained me on, if people had allergies, how to approach the guests, and the basic skills about serving food and taking care of guests. Then after 1 year, 6 months after, they asked me if I want to be a supervisor or a banquet captain, but I didn't think that my English was that good, and either I wasn't prepared for it. So I told them I couldn't do it. But then after a year, I got it offered again, and then I said, okay, I'm gonna try.
That's great. That's great. What do you like about the work, the banquet captain work? What really made it rewarding for you?
That every day is something new. You have to work with all nationalities. We get conventions from all over the world. You get to meet different cultures. You get to meet different people. And I love to work with people. I love I love the excitement of, getting an event, like finishing 1 hour, and then we have another event coming in, maybe a convention in 1 hour, and then the next hour we have to turn it to a social. So I love the excitement and coordinating everything. It makes it so exciting for me, and working with guests that they're all stressed about it. And I tell them everything is gonna be fine. Let me handle it, and everything comes out. And then the satisfaction that the guests get after they see that everything got done, and they don't know how, but it got done.
That's great. What would you say the top skills that you had coming into the job that you realized that what about you made you a good fit for this job?
What I hear from all the guests, and it made me feel like they keep coming back, and they will ask for me because they said I was a very honest person, that I will tell them what exactly to expect. So they trusted me. But I feel that I am bilingual, and then I am flexible, and I am a team leader. So all that.
That's great. And you said you did develop a number of skills as a result of the job as you grew into the job.
Yes. I also, when probably about 10 years after working there, I got a divorce, and so I became a single mother, and I had to work in different departments to fit my schedule to take care of my son. So besides having the skills to work with the banquets, I also worked in the kitchen with security and maintenance. So each department that needed help, I was willing to work in that department. So in order to take care of my son, so I got different experiences in the hotel industry.
Thank you. And so tell us about your current status, because obviously business travel is way down, and certainly in the San Francisco Bay Area. What's your and hotels are not doing well. What's your status now?
Well, right now I'm a stay-home mom. I'm taking care of my girls. They're here. They're homeschooling right now. Well, not homeschooling, but they're doing it on video, like we're doing it right now. And so I am staying home, getting unemployment, and that's it.
And do you think about, particularly, obviously, people are saying that it's going to be a slow comeback for hospitality, particularly, again, in our area that's so dependent on business travel. What are you thinking about other careers? What other things might be of interest to you, given your background and your interests?
I haven't thought exactly what exactly I will do. I tried to book some, to take some trainings online, and I had some interviews. What things that I thought I would do, after looking at it, it didn't work for me. So now I'm still trying to find which, with my skills and I don't have a degree, so I don't know which way to go.
Mhm. So you've got you see the degree as a barrier, and then
Yes.
the school situation in California, most of the schools are still closed,
Yes.
for in-person learning, so that's an issue as well.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Phil, do you have anything for Maria?
Yeah, thanks, Maria, for providing your perspective. As you've gone through your career, I think you said 21 years working at the DoubleTree. Have you played any role in working with new staff in terms of training or support or other types of activities where you have, helped workers who are new to the field?
Yes, many times. Every time we get new employees, we have to, if they assign to me, I have to be helping them, teaching them how to take care of guests, and also how to read the videos. And yes, I have.
That's a formal part of your job. That's a
Yes.
formal job responsibility you have. Yeah.
Yes.
And do you notice any different challenges or obstacles maybe that newer workers coming into the field may have? Any specific challenges when you're working with folks who are coming in and starting their careers that maybe are preventing them from moving forward, or finding the same kind of success that you've had?
Yes. We get, I will not say, maybe like 30% of the people that I got through the 21 years I worked there. Some of them, they didn't even know how to read very well. So you have to explain them and kind of teach them how. Some of them, they have very basic knowledge of even in their native language. Most of them are from another country, so the English also, I don't think they knew also in their own language how to read very well. So in English it was more difficult. So we had to be helping them how to read, and also the language barrier also is a challenge, and training them on how to do the job is a little bit more easier because it just is very self-explanatory. You just tell them you have to go to the guest and serve them and all this, but the English barrier is a little bit difficult.
Great, thank you.
Okay, well, why don't we, Armando, thank you so much, Maria. That was a great story. Armando, why don't we go on to you? And the thing I noticed in your introduction, you said this is sort of the work you have to be almost born to. It takes a special interest to really get into hospitality, particularly from an entrepreneurial standpoint. So could you tell a little more about that and from what you've experienced and from what you've seen?
Sure. First of all, Maria, everything that you were saying, I experienced it myself. It has to, when the clients come back and tell you what a great job you've done after you work uh, endlessly all day to make things happen, events right after another, caterings, that's what I do. At the end of the day, you get the satisfaction of them just being so grateful and you know, just getting everything together to make it happen. It's a very rewarding feeling. So I know exactly what you were talking about. You brought a smile to my face. So um, as far as, yes, having it in your blood, it's hospitality work is, I was blessed enough to have been trained by a culinary chef, Jonathan Harris. He was trained in England the hard way, learned how to make the sauces, you know, from scratch. Everything was from scratch. So I was blessed to have the opportunity to for him to train me. Did not go to school or anything, but many years of working with him taught me a lot. But the most important thing was hospitality was number one. The client was always right. And yes, being in the food service industry, sometimes you can't please everybody. But regardless of it, you know, you just you go along with it and you say, you know, you try to make things well, and if you can't, then you just take a loss. But the customer was always right. Being Having the ability to be able to serve different companies taught me how to deal with the corporate world as well. You know, learn how to invoice, learn how to, you know, open up a kitchen from scratch. Just basically self-taught, and I think that was very important in my life, where it brought me to the place where I am now, that I can basically teach people what not to do, all the mistakes that I've made. Basically, you know, I'm here as a buffer to warn them against the things that you shouldn't do. But as far as having the hospitality in your blood, I believe it came from seeing my father work in the kitchen, and that as a Mexican immigrant as well. Um, it is not, you know, you have the machismo in you, but seeing a man in the kitchen kind of made it easier for most of us. And you know, I've heard it, you know, little things here, you know, because they're not brought up to seeing a man in the kitchen. So it made it easier for me to go into hospitality work, just seeing my father in the kitchen.
Great. So some people are drawn to it. Are there other folks in your experience who this is kind of what's available, right? When you're coming out of school, this is what's available, and these are the jobs we take. Is that
Right, right. A lot of times it has to. It depends on, you know, your education. A lot of times, you know, you're forced to take a job because, you know, you have to help provide for your family. So whatever's available, and a lot of us started off as dishwashers, you know, as an entry level work job in the hospitality industry. So that's where you start off, but with hard work, you know, you keep on being promoted, and that's how you end up moving up in the in the hospitality industry. Um, as far as, I'm sorry, one more time, what was your question?
No, I think that's great. I think you've answered it. So Maria did a nice job of talking about the skills that people have, right? And that may not always be recognized by the general public. Could you amplify that from your experience? What kind of the skill sets are in that work?
As far as skill sets, I believe that in the restaurant industry, I see people who are, you know, they like you said, the food is a passion for most of us, and that's what distinguishes you from the rest of the cooks or just the rest of the people. But if you work on some recipes and you perfect it, and you're able to come up with your own recipes, like I said, it's something that most chefs and cooks take pride in. So, and it's something that you develop, that you have to develop, but you don't just, you're not just born with it. You have to tinker with it and play with your recipes. But as far as developing different tastes, what appeals to the most your general public, your clientele, I think that's one of the most important things that you can have as a restaurant owner or a cook. So definitely the skill factor is knowing how to adjust to your different clientele and your recipes.
So again, given what's happened to the restaurant industry, and particularly in parts of San Jose, a lot of restaurant closures, unfortunately, I think folks are probably starting to think about kind of how they transfer those skills, right, to other opportunities. Um, are you seeing evidence of this? What are you seeing out there as far as people being able to be resilient in the face of the pandemic?
Right. Yes. The restaurant industry has been hit, one of the hardest hits industry, because as soon as you're able to open, they close you back down, and you don't have inside dining. You're forced to do outside dining, and the weather. We've been kind of blessed because we've been having some really nice weather, but during those cold winter nights, I mean, it's hard to have a good meal, no matter how hard you prepared your meal. As soon as it hits that cold air, the flavors and the texture changes. So one of the things that I was able to impart on some of my clients as a business advisor was to think outside of the box. Okay, start doing meal prep. Start doing caterings. You have to adjust from what you're normally used to as a buffet style to individual packaging. But that is one of the things that I believe was able to save some of our restaurants from closure, because there's no way that you could continue to keep your doors open just on outside dining alone. So basically telling them, think outside of the box. What are the other things that you could do inside of your restaurant that can and like I said, meal prepping was one of them. Outside um, some of them had to basically sublease the restaurant, because they're not using it. So in one particular instance, I was able to find a cold juice producer that needed a place to work. So she was able to rent out in the morning, and then the restaurant was open in the evening. So just learning how to adjust to this pandemic and being resilient, so that there is help coming along the way. From the state and from the federal level, some more help. So unfortunately, a lot of our storefronts or restaurants closed, but the ones who are able to stay open, they will be receiving some financial aid coming soon. And also, I believe that we're at the light at the end of the tunnel here. We're seeing it. Vaccinations are ramping up, and hopefully soon enough we'll be able to have some inside dining, and these restaurants can come back to the status that they were before, if not even better, because they would have implemented some of the skills that they needed to survive. Some of the sales that were generated because of other things that they had to implement.
Right, Phil?
Luther, I've got a few questions that I'm going to circle back to when we sort of bring everybody back online. But Armando, this was terrific. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Polly, are you back with us?
I am. We have a spotty connection, so if I drop off, I'll call right back.
Okay, we appreciate your perseverance. Thank you so much. So I want to start with you, just asking you kind of the basic entry question for the people. And you have an interesting, your connection with the restaurant industry is certainly interesting. When you took over your bar, what did you notice about people, their entry points? How did they get into the industry? Why were they attracted to this? What were you seeing there?
Well, initially we weren't very busy. So we did have a lot of applications or new employees that had very little experience in the industry. We really never hire anybody with no experience. But back then we were able to accept less experience in order to get the positions filled, and we weren't busy enough. We had time to train people. One of the challenges as you get busier and you still have a small staff is that you can't take people that don't have a fairly lengthy experience level in the job that they're applying for.
And what did you see from them as far as the skills that they've developed? And what's your observation about the skills that people develop, the folks who are good in this industry who develop that are able to take elsewhere, kind of transferable skills? What's your experience been with that?
Well, to be a good server or to be a good kitchen employee or to be a good bartender, you have to be able to multitask. The people that are good at these jobs are masters of multitasking. So any job that I mean, much better than I'm able to do, and to hold numbers in their head and make correct change. I mean, that's a skill set that a lot of people just don't have in jobs that pay way more than what service industry pays. So any job that really requires the ability to multitask, keep numbers in your head, and do all of this in a fast and efficient way is an appropriate job for a bartender or a kitchen person.
Do you do any training along those lines? Do you have a course in multitasking, or how does that work?
No, we don't. And I've never really looked into that. For me, it was always you just either have the ability to do that or you don't. Again, we're a fairly small staff, so.
And so I mean, we have a sense of it, but tell us just from the ground there, what's the hospitality scene like, particularly this being around Mardi Gras time?
Well, I mean, New Orleans has 391,000 residents. And in 2019, we had 18 million visitors. So there is no way to replace those dollars, tips or wages, without tourism coming back. Because as committed as our residents are to keeping their favorite bars and restaurants alive, they simply don't have enough money.
And are you getting a sense of people starting to look elsewhere, starting to think about other opportunities?
Yeah. So several of my staff, after PPP ran out this summer, have actually moved into other industries. I've got 2 or 3 that went into construction, 1 that went into security, and at least 2 moved out of the state for opportunities that either to live with their parents or friends and seek opportunities there, or they were able to line up a job, in another state.
And is there a training ecosystem or infrastructure in your area that kind of facilitates that sort of movement to other opportunities?
Yeah, so we have a couple of organizations that work with the Greater New Orleans Foundation that offer pivot opportunities for people and training. And some of my former employees have taken advantage of that. I don't think that there's as much publicity about that as there should be, and I do think that we have a large number of career, like Maria, career service industry people who don't know how to do anything else. And I'm not saying they're not capable of doing anything else. It's just sort of like, well, what do I do? What's out there? And there's so few jobs that that it's a challenge.
Great. Thank you so much. Phil?
Polly, I just had a quick No, because you talked about the importance of, sort of recognizing the need to pay, more substantial wages and benefits. And
Yeah.
if you could talk a little bit about that, and then what was the impact on your staff, and sort of how does that change either the types of folks that you're able to recruit, or how long they stay, or other impacts, I guess positive or negative, right? I mean, if we sort of keep COVID out of it for a moment to the extent that we can, but sort of in that
Right.
in that experience, could you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. Well, no employee is going to be, even the best employee is not going to be at their best if they're worried about their car being repossessed, or if their mother needs help and they're trying to, to switch between helping their mother and living themselves, or if they have small children and there's problems with the school where they have to work around, they have to design a work schedule that also works around their children's needs. Those are very concrete. Nobody's going to be a good employee if they're worried about being evicted. And so some of this is money, in the sense that, I would say I probably give more time off for toothaches, for tooth infections, than almost any other reason. Because without dental insurance, these employees put it off for a long time. Now, my employees have some options that others don't, but that's a really common attendance issue. And if you have some sort of a recourse where people don't have to wait until it's an emergency to go seek care, that makes a better employee. And it's less emergencies for the employer as well. Somebody calling me the night before saying, oh my God, I had this massive infection, my whole face is swollen, is difficult for me to reschedule. If I had gotten the call the week before and was able to connect them with care before it became an emergency, not only can I, get them what they need so they're back to work soon and it's not as dangerous, but it also means that I can cover that shift more easily. But people in the service industry don't tend to have ever had these benefits. So the benefit for me is that my employees stay longer, they're healthier, they have more help with their family needs, they have more help if there's an emergency, if someone in their family dies and they have to come up with funeral costs. I have connections that I can put them with that do emergency grants. The expression is, it's very expensive to be poor. And one of the things that we were starting right before COVID hit was we were going to do some basic banking connections and banking, just sort of how-tos, and connect them with a local bank. Because some people, if they have to go cash their check and pay everything in cash, pay their bills in cash, they're paying a fee to cash their checks, they're paying a fee to pay in cash at, Entergy or something like that. And those are fees that I, as a bank holder, would not have to pay. So they're taking home less of the money that they're getting paid than somebody who is in a higher income bracket. And I think employers and the charities surrounding these agencies can make a massive difference in the quality of life of employees and the quality of life for employers. Because again, employees who are healthy, employees who have the support they need, do a better job.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you, Polly. So Ron, you've had the benefit of hearing our panelists talk about kind of three areas. They're the entry points of workers into the field, the skills that they develop, and kind of ability to be mobile and move to other careers. How does what you've heard today sort of align with all the great research that you've done? And why don't you add a little more flavor, if you could, from your perspective?
Sure. I mean, I think, one of the things about hospitality is it's an industry but it's also a skill set. And I think Armando, hit on that. And if you sort of step back and you look at where we're going, where industry is going, how industry has been impacted and accelerated by COVID, and so the advancement of sort of digital engagement, digital operations. What that does is if you think about what it does to retail, for instance, decimates retail to one level, but the stores that do remain open have to really present a differentiated value proposition. Even the online, delivery or commerce organizations like Amazon. And one way that they look to differentiate themselves now, because everything is kind of accessible through your phone or your computer, is service. And so service is actually, and you see that a lot in the healthcare industry too. Healthcare organizations are increasingly trying to differentiate themselves around service delivery. There's a lot of technology that's going on in healthcare as well, but that's one way. And so, that creates some opportunity for hospitality workers. The challenge with hospitality is that the mode in which it's delivered is going to be different. So hospitality is interesting. As an industry, it's been like the hardest hit by COVID, but it's likely to be the industry that, once we get through COVID, comes out more in its original form than other industries. Right? Other industries have been like transformed by it. They haven't been as impacted as it, but they will be meaningfully different in terms of delivery. Education is one, even just the whole environment of work and people working from home. There will still be restaurants, and you will need cooks and chefs in restaurants to prepare the food. There's not a robot that does that well today, right? And hotels, that experience around customer service, they will exist. Now, there'll be fewer of hotels, right? There'll be fewer restaurants, but the service will look, a good deal like what we saw before it. But as there's fewer opportunities within those industries because they've had to close, those people have to move out into other industries. The challenge is the service delivery models in those other industries are going to look different than they do in hospitality, where it is sort of in-person delivery. And that's sort of the skill and transformation and the learning that needs to happen for hospitality workers that need to move out. They're going to have to learn how to, one of those new modes are just coming into form. How do you deliver service virtually? How do you deliver service remotely? How do you do that? Those aren't solidified models yet, but the way in which they're delivered are going to be different and require a slightly different skill set of hospitality workers to do it. So the folks that kind of can survive and go back to the 70% of hospitality jobs that exist post-COVID, I think will be in reasonable shape. Those 30% really have this challenge of adapting to new modes of delivery and the associated skills along with that. But I think it's challenging for an individual, I think, to just figure that out on their own. I think that's going to be the role of government, companies, and organizations that actually want to take, a lot of companies are going to want that workforce, but they're going to have to figure out how they can retrain them and take that skill set and adapt it to those new modes of delivery. So, and where might they go? I mentioned, I mentioned one is healthcare. I mean, that's always sort of been there. There's been a real sort of challenge in hiring a lot of the roles, whether those are, frontline service professionals. A lot of the healthcare industry has a huge opportunity around food service, and so they're constantly looking for food service professionals. And so those are areas that I think people can migrate to. Look, the delivery services have sucked up a lot of people, but they haven't really established that those are sustainable jobs for people. And, provide a sustainable wage, that provide a a career pathway, right? For, you know, as Armando said, I worked it may have been washing dishes initially, but, you know, ultimately I could be running a kitchen, you know? And so what do those pathways look like in this whole, you know, delivery model that's out there, and that gig model that's out there? And I think that's a real challenge. So, I mean, I don't think I certainly don't have the answers here. But, you know, but there's, you know, these types of conversations, these types of coalitions are really important to sort of getting there. There will be demand for people. And the accessibility of skills training now is one of the benefits of COVID. That the ability to upskill remotely has been increased, and the efficacy of it and the acceptance of it has been increased. And I think that presents, you know, an opportunity for displaced hospitality workers.
That's great. And the thing, I think the optimistic news that you bring, Ron, and that we've heard from everyone here is there are clearly very valuable skills coming out of hospitality. There's no question about that. Unique and valuable skills, very high value propositions on behalf of these individuals.
Yeah, I mean, how do you differentiate, you know, a service where, you know, everybody just goes onto their computer and pulls it up, right? You know, it's not differentiated by location, which has been the key differentiator of most services. Hey, it's in my neighborhood, I'm going to go there and get it, right? It's not differentiated by aesthetic. You know, oh, there's a beautiful facility and I'm going to differentiate it there, and, you know, that's why I'm going to visit it. You know, it's ultimately, you know, and it's not differentiated by product, because, you know, everything's commoditized, everything's accessible everywhere through supply chain. Right? So if you think about it, you know, service is one of the few ways in which you can, you know, really differentiate an experience any longer. And I think, and that's just starting. That people haven't even really focused on that yet. Everyone's just so excited that you can use all these different remote tools, but they're going to come back to it and find that, you know, that's the challenge that's presented by, you know, the sort of the flattening of accessibility.
Thank you. Phil?
Luther, this is Polly. I think I feel like I have to interject while we're talking about the pivoting, that many of the natural pivots for service industries, specifically bartenders and servers, result in far less incomes for them, because a server or a bartender who is making tips and is very good at their job is making $25 to $35 an hour. And so pivoting into healthcare and some of these other positions lowers them by half or a third in terms of income. You know, men have the opportunity to go into construction and things, you know, physical jobs. I have multiple women in my kitchen that don't have that opportunity because they can't do the physical labor that some of the younger guys can. So as we talk about those pivots, I think it's important that we remember that maybe they're opportunities, but they're not necessarily good opportunities, or opportunities that come close to the ability to pay their bills that they had prior to the pandemic.
Yeah, thank you for that insight. I think that's going to be a challenge.
I had a question, actually, sort of on this vein, but sort of thinking about some things that Maria, you talked about in terms of multitasking and working in different departments, and sort of the way that you've navigated a lot of different challenges and new opportunities in your career. And I'm interested specifically around, you know, when you said you were, you know, someone asked you about a promotion and it was a year before you sort of, when they asked again, you know, and then you took it. So I have two questions for you, and you know, don't worry about being too humble here. But one is, I'm interested to know if you have a, first of all, why do you think or maybe they told you, right? Your employer told you, but why do you think they saw you and said, Maria should be promoted? She's the right person for this. What is it about Maria that made them say, we want to promote this person? What is it about Maria that made them say, you know what? Maria needs some more flexibility here. So we're going to let her work, not just in banquets, but in any department that we have. From, I wrote down some security. You said you worked in, you were willing to work in operations and maintenance, right? You're willing to do anything, right? So what was it that made them say, you know what? Maria doesn't have any skills in security. I don't know, maybe you do, but they just said something about Maria, right? That we want to see. And then how much of that, then when you think about that, how much of that was sort of formal versus informal? Meaning it was a boss who saw something, or someone in the executive team who said, this is the person, this is the person that we want to bring? Or was there a formal process that said, well, Maria's been here a certain number of years, so she's on a track? So if you could maybe just give us a minute or two on that, I think that would be really helpful to understand sort of how this whole thing plays out.
Well, I had a manager, a director that he told me that I was that was a very responsible person that, took care of. He said, if I give you, I don't remember the word that he used, but like, if I give you lemons, you make lemonade out of it. Like, basically that's the words he said. Like, I know you can do everything. So when I brought him that was my first job. I didn't have any skills in any of the departments, but they saw that I will do my best on anything that they put me at, like in maintenance, putting caulking on the bathrooms, fixing the walls, taking the paper and all that. I am a fast learner. I think I am. They told me, but I have to believe in myself.
I believe it.
So like, they would explain me one time how to do it and I would do it. So I think that's what they saw, that I was lucky to be able to do, that they accommodated me to my needs that I needed, at that time. Like I worked on, if I needed to wash dishes, I wash the dishes, or if I needed to fix something, I will fix it. Security, same thing. I have the skills to work with people. So with security, if something arises, I can talk to the client or talk to whoever needed to be talked to, and take care of the situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's really interesting. I mean, what the kinds of things you're talking about are things like attitude and temperament and willingness to try different things and being responsible. And I guess in that experience for you, whether it was sort of asking you again to apply to be a supervisor, or encouraging you to take on these different roles for and allowing it and encouraging it, was that formal? Was that something that comes from the top, or was that sort of the result of a supervisor who saw something in you? Is it more of a track program, or is it more of an individual kind of thing?
It was the director that saw me and he asked me. And the first time that I got asked after 6 months, like I told him I couldn't do it. When I got asked after a year, he even got all the supervisors that I had, the banquet captains, and they said that I was the person that was most fitted for that job. He even got the supervisors there, and he got me in a meeting and he said, well, they're all saying that you can do it. So that's what made me think, okay, I can do it.
Got it. And now, Polly, you obviously, you said you have sort of a smaller operation, obviously, than Courtyard, right? But I'm wondering, sort of from your perspective and the way that you think about the people who work for you, along these lines, sort of, are you thinking about like building up sort of specific skill sets? Is it more about who the person is and what sort of things they bring? Is there a difference, right? Are these just skills that maybe aren't, you know, textbook skills, but are or technical skills, but are things that are part of someone's sort of repertoire of what they're able to do? Could you talk a little bit about that? I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know how that. Maybe I'm kind of missing the point of what you're trying to accomplish here. The skill sets that people can be trained for can be enhanced. Yeah,
I guess the question is like,
I don't think I really understand how that applies to.
When you're thinking about, say, a person who's worked for you for a while, and you think that, you know, Joe or Jen, right, is ready for promotion, like this person's ready to go. When you think about someone that you promote, oftentimes we think of it in terms like mastery of certain skills, and other times we think about it as, you know, like maybe something else, right? Like, you know, some other sort of element of the job that's not really skills focused. And I'm just sort of thinking, like, what is it that you see in someone where you think this is now someone that I'm going to develop and bring to the next step?
If they can't be brought to the next step, then they're usually not a good fit for the pub. Now, we're a very small employer, so we don't have a lot of room for vertical movement. What I've done in the past is for employees who clearly showed a lot of promise, and they had, you know, they weren't ever going to get, you know, better. Because again, I have one GM and me that run it, so there's not an enormous pool like there is in a big corporation of places that people can go. I have worked with employees who truly wanted to go into management and service industry and hospitality. And what we've done is brought them into the office and showed them some basics, let them help us on an hourly basis, and including in addition to their duties, to put them in a position where when they got hired as a manager in a larger place or another small place, that they walked in with those particular hard skills that they need. But again, getting back to it, I think it's mostly soft skills that make people able to transition either up or over to another job. It's their organization, it's the multitasking. As Armando said earlier, it's the desire to serve. I mean, we are service industry, so at our heart, we want to make people happy. So all of those sort of soft skills are truly more important than whether or not somebody can mix a Sazerac properly. Because I can train you to mix a Sazerac. I can't train you to care.
Okay, that's a terrific, I mean, great nugget. That is just, I mean, from a researcher's perspective, those things, that's gold. So thank you for that. I know we have rapidly run out of time. This was a fascinating discussion. I have so many more questions in my mind, as I'm sure. I'm sure that, you know, we will have more opportunities to do this. This is the work of the hub that we're thinking through these questions. So we appreciate everyone's participation, especially Maria, Armando, Polly, Ron. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your expertise with us here, and for all the folks who have made some comments in the chats that's been really helpful. We are continuing the work. We have more to come, so keep an eye on the conference page. And then Tiffany, I don't know if you had any final words, or Luther, before we sign off and let folks go. Great, thank you.
Yeah, real quick, I just wanted to say that we do have a lot of engagement that's happening with panelists and attendees behind the scenes from today's session. If you want to get in touch with any of them, please let us know. My email address is tiffany@closeit.org. I'm happy to connect you. Thank you all very, very much for a very engaging conversation. I love the 51-49, scenario that was presented today. I can teach you the skills, but I can't teach you to care. I think that was definitely a good parting notes for today's session. Thank you all very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at the next event.